Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day or night or whatever time it is when you're listening to this Shiur. Today we have a fascinating topic and the opportunity to contrast the commentary of Rashi with the commentary of Rabbi Chaim ben Attar, also known as the Or HaChaim. I'll tell you a little about him first, and then we'll move on with the Shiur. Rabbi Chaim ben Attar, as I said, is also known as the Or HaChaim. That's the name of his Torah commentary. He was born in Morocco in 1696, and he died in Yerushalayim in 1743. He was a very prominent, one of the most prominent rabbis in Morocco. He left Morocco in 1733, headed towards Israel. On the way, he settled for a little bit of time in Livorno and eventually made his way to Israel. He is buried in Yerushalayim on Har HaZeitim, on the Mount of Olives. And he wrote a very interesting commentary on the Torah. And today he offers us a fascinating lesson about what it means to live a Jewish life, a committed Jewish life. So let's start with reading some of the psukim. If you want to stop the recording and get a chumash, you can do so now. We are going to be reading from the middle of chapter Chaf Hey, the middle of chapter 25 in the book of Genesis, just a few psukim. The psukim start with the following: Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham, Avraham holidet Yitzchak. So another time we'll discuss this redundancy in the verses, but Avraham gave birth to Yitzchak. Vayhi Yitzchak ben Arba'im shana bekachtoet Rivka bat Betuel ha'arami mipadan Aram, achot Lavan ha'arami lo leisha. So then Yitzchak, at the age of 40, gets married to Rivka, and Vayatar Yitzchak Lashem Lishto. Isaac pleaded with God on behalf of his wife, Ki akarahi, because she was barren. Vayatar lo Hashem, Vatar Rivka Ishto. God responded to his plea, and Rivka conceived. Rivka became pregnant. And now here is the verse that we're going to focus on. Vayitrotetsu habanim b'kirba, famous verse. But the children struggled in her womb. This is the translation that I have from the translation of the Jewish Publication Society, JPS. It's a wonderful Tanakh with a great translation. Vayitrotetsu habanim b'kirba. The children struggled in her womb. Vatomer imkein lama ze anochi. And she said, if so, why? Here the translation is, why do I exist? Or why is this happening to me? Vatelech lidrosh et Hashem. And then she went to inquire of God. So, question, what was going on? What does Vayitrotetsu habanim b'kirba mean? What was this struggle going on in her womb? And why did it bother her so much? And why did she go to Hashem? What did she say to God when she went to Hashem? So let's first read Rashi. Rashi says as follows: Vayitrotetsu, and the baby struggled. It says as follows: Al korchach hamikre hazeh omer darsheni. This verse says, interpret me. Shesatam mahi ritzitzazu, because it's concealed what the struggle was all about, what was going on in her womb. V'katav im kein lama ze anochi, and the pasuk says, if it be so, what do I need this for? Avotenu darshuhu. So therefore, Rashi brings us the interpretation of the rabbinic tradition. What does it mean? Lashon ritzah. The language here is Vayitrotetsu is ritzah. These babies were running around. What does this mean? Kishhaita overet al pitchei Torah, when she would pass by the house of Torah study, shel shem va'ever, of shem and aver. Yaakov ratz umifar kes latzeit. Yaakov would run and struggle to come out. Overet al petach avodat elilim, when she would pass by the door of idol worship. Esav mifar kes latzeit. Esav would struggle to come out. Davar acher. Another interpretation is they were struggling with each other. They quarreled. Inherent in the two worlds. So she was having pain. There was something uncomfortable about her pregnancy. Vatomer, but then the Torah says, Vatomer im kain lama ze anochi. So Rashi says, Gadol tsar ha'ibor. if the pain of pregnancy is so great, lama ze anochi, why do I pray for you? Meaning, mit'avel mitpalelet, Rashi says, desire and pray ala harayon, to conceive. Meaning, if it's going to be so painful to me, why did I daven, and why did I have Yitzchak daven in the first place to get pregnant? It's not worth it, it's too painful. That's what Rashi says. The Or HaChaim has a lot of trouble with this. He starts off by saying that it's impossible. He says, he quotes Rashi and says, it's impossible to assume that Rivka would give up so easily on her wish to have a child just because it's a little painful. The Or HaChaim says as follows: Upeirusho zal ein hadat maskemet alav. I can't agree with it. It makes no sense, is what he's saying. Shetim'as hatzadeket v'heryona l'tzad hatzar. That this righteous woman would reject wanting to be pregnant because of pain. And proof is, how does God's answer make her feel any better? It doesn't take the pain away. She says, there's too much pain. And God says, well, there are 2 children in your womb, which seems to pacify her, seems to make her happy. Well, if it was just about pain, the Torah never indicates that the pain was taken away at this point. So why would God's answer make her feel better if in fact she was still in pain? So for those reasons, the Or HaChaim says Rashi cannot possibly be right. And he comes up with a radical explanation of this, and one which I think offers us a beautiful insight. He says, therefore, the understanding must mean that v'zeh yoraki heryona eina mitkayem. What did she think? What did Rivka think? Rivka thought that this was not a viable pregnancy. Rivka thought that the pregnancy, that she was going to have a miscarriage. And then she says, Im kain lama ze anochi, if this pregnancy is going to end in failure, why did I come pray for you, to you, God, with it to begin with? She's very upset that she's not going to have a child. She's not upset about the pain. She's upset she's not going to have a child. Then she goes to God, and God says, no. The babies are going to be fine. In fact, shnei goyim bit midnech. You're going to have 2 children, and they're both going to turn out. They're both going to be healthy. And so, what does he say at the end? Ula olam lo hikpida al tsar. So therefore, says the Or HaChaim, she never was concerned about the pain, al tsar herayon, about the pain of the pregnancy. Ki hatzadikim yisbelu tsar gadol b'olam hazeh l'tachlit tov hanitzchi. Beautiful. Because righteous people are willing to suffer pain in this world for an everlasting positive purpose. For an everlasting positive purpose. L'tachlit tov hanitzchi. So the Or HaChaim is teaching us that the pain that Rivka was experiencing was more than normal, more than she may have known from other women. And so therefore she's very afraid that this pregnancy is going to fail. And then she says to God, well, if it's going to fail, why did I come to pray to you to begin with? And God says, you came to pray to me to begin with was fine, because your pregnancy is not going to fail. And you're going to have to live with the pain, but the pain is going to bring with it a tov nitzchi, a positive and an everlasting positive outcome. So I think this Or HaChaim begs us to ask ourselves the question, what type of pain, discomfort, sacrifice are we willing to make for an everlasting good outcome? Something which has such profound impact on our lives. Are we willing to suffer, are willing to sacrifice for it? Many people do. Many people sacrifice for very important ideas and ideals, Jewish ideas and ideals in their life, and that's exactly what the Or HaChaim wants us to think about when he offers this, what I think he wants to think about when he offers this perush, when he offers this explanation. Pain is not the problem. There are many people who are willing to suffer real pain, discomfort, financial sacrifice, you name it. There are many people who are willing to suffer through that, if at the end they see that there is going to be something nitzchi, there's going to be something everlasting. I want to close with a beautiful story. A story of a person who comes before God, and God is going to, or it's really a story about all of us, how I heard it. We're going to come before God one day after 120 years, Mea ve'esrim shana, and God's going to look us over carefully, and he's going to say, where are your scars? And if we say to him, we have no scars, then God is going to say, was there nothing worth fighting for? Meaning, in our life, we have to figure out what's worth fighting for, and those things are worth fighting for. Like Rivka, we have to also be willing to have some scars from the battles that we fight for those important things. As in Rivka's case, she was willing to suffer, according to the Or HaChaim, willing to suffer the pain because she knew at the end of the day there was going to be something beautiful and everlasting good at the end of the story. So by comparing Rashi to the Or HaChaim, we have a very clear picture, a challenge. Maybe the Or HaChaim is challenging us to ask ourselves that question: what do we have in our life that's worth fighting for, that's worth sacrificing for, maybe is even worth suffering for? There must be things in our life. When we figure out what those things are, then we'll really understand what's important in our life. And if we like the list, then that's wonderful. And if we don't like the list, then at least the question has led us down the path of trying to recalibrate or figure out those things which should be in our lives, those things which should be worth fighting for. So I hope you've enjoyed this mini shiur on the comparison between Rashi and the Or HaChaim, again offering us a beautiful and strong challenge in terms of the questions we should ask ourselves in our lives. And that's it for the mini shiur on Parshat Toldot. Shalom.